Believe in Everything Auburn is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online is your number one source for all your betting needs. You can get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. Bet Online continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. So head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Just remember to use promo code BELIEVE, that is BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts.
Campbell in the end zone. Caught. Touchdown Auburn. Touchdown Auburn. A miracle at Jordan Hare. Nothing but green grass ahead of him.
As hard as they're going to try, they're not keeping this one off this field tonight. 100 yards. Can you believe it? I still can't believe it.
Now presenting
Believe in Everything Auburn with your hosts, Taylor Davis and Jason Campbell.
War Eagle, everyone. Welcome back to Believe in Everything Auburn. I'm Taylor Davis. He's Jason Campbell. We never actually listen to our intro when we're recording. I just edit it in before I post it. But man, that's such a good intro. That song, Tiger Walk. I mean, I have to be T. Will's biggest fan in terms of his rap career. I think I have to have the highest views on YouTube of that video because I listen to it on the daily. But really get you going. If you're an Auburn fan and you need a little boost, go listen to Tiger Walk by T. Will. I mean, what a banger.
Hey, T. Will is, he was the guy back in the day. We had a couple of guys on the team that think they could rap, but he was the one that actually went in and put out an album. So,
yeah,
you have to give him some credit there. But as we was talking before the podcast, that if you was to win $5 or $10 million right now, would you still do what you do, or would you buy a beach house or a lake house?
Okay. So many great questions you present me to start the episode, Jay. I would definitely go beach house over lake house. I do love the lake, but the beach would take the cake for me. And yes, I absolutely would still do what I do. And I wouldn't have to worry about some of the financial aspects, or any of that stress would be alleviated. It would solely just be doing what I love. And when I want to, like, frick yeah, sign me up. You would have to pry these microphones out of my cold, dead hands. I love my job so much that, like, money or not doesn't make the difference for me.
Well, that's what people say that I've talked to a lot of people before that, have built really good careers. And I always ask them, I say, hey, what's one thing when it comes to, do you feel like your job is work? And they say no, because they feel like they're doing what they love, and they love what they do. And it just so happens it brings in money for them as well. So it doesn't feel like a job. So I've always asked people that if you would even want 100 million, will you just sit at home every day? And I would say no, because there's so much more to life to give than money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So much more to accomplish. There's so much more to encourage and experience. And if you're just sitting at home every day, then you're not experiencing anything. Like when you're up in your later years, you want to retire and do different things. But while you're young and you can be active, like, go be active, go
Jason,
encourage somebody.
You would be on every golf course that you could find. Who are you kidding?
I would probably golf twice a week, but I would still do podcast shows. I would still do, radio stuff. I would still do things that I enjoy, because I love being around the game. I love talking about the game. Because on the golf course, you can go out there some days and it just beats you up. You can go out there and shoot a great score the next day, and then the day after that, you go out there and you look like you never picked up sticks. So
also true. Yes, we can dream. Maybe one day we'll hit the lotto, Jay, and we will just do this for fun. We could sponsor our own podcast. Use code Taylor for 10% off of whatever you want. Anywho, welcome in, everybody. War Eagle, as always. Jason and I hope you had a fantastic week. We are rounding out our fall camp coverage, you guys. It is winding down, and we are getting very close to season. Jason and I were kind of mapping out the next couple of weeks and what our episodes are going to look like, and I realized that in a couple weeks, we will be doing a game preview. And that blew my mind because it really is upon us. So we're going to get you caught up on all the fall camp updates next week. We're going to do a little season preview, kind of SEC expectations, maybe some superlatives, and then we'll be gearing up for some game preview. So lots of good stuff ahead. Make sure you keep it locked. I do just want to start out the episode by saying to all the people who so kindly mentioned that I touch my hair a lot during episodes, first of all, you're right. And you're onto something. And I do apologize. Second of all, I wore a ponytail today just to guarantee that I'm not going to touch my hair this episode. Okay. And I do apologize, but you work 10 years in television. You're bound to develop some insecurities and some bad habits. And that happens to be one of mine. Look, I work so hard to know what I'm talking about and to add good value. And people are going to point out that I touch my hair. You can't win. You really can't win. But I do agree with you guys. Like, honestly, I'm not knocking it. But
that means they watched our show and we wanted to continue watching the show. So if touching your
thank you
hair
for the
makes them watch
viewership.
the show more, then keep touching your hair. You know?
Okie dokie. Just had to acknowledge that. But moving on. Let's talk a little bit about fall camp. Obviously, we talked last week just about kind of where some of the position groups were. And obviously, I don't think we can get through an episode without talking about the quarterback battle because that is just one of the biggest storylines, arguably the biggest, along with the new coaching staff and the return of Hugh Freeze to the SEC. This quarterback battle is going to be the talking point of this season, probably into the first few weeks of it. The team had their first scrimmage in Jordan-Hare this past weekend. If we go back to SEC Media Days, when we did our recap episode out of that, what I told you guys was that Hugh Freeze said to the media his kind of blueprint plan for how he was going to handle the quarterbacks in fall camp. And he said he wanted 10 days with all three guys getting equal reps and then have it dwindled down to 2 and the third guy essentially take a step back. We are at day 10, people. So what they present to the media tonight in that little viewing window, I think will be interesting. But Hugh Freeze did speak to the media after the scrimmage on Saturday and said, yesterday, which would have been Friday, I thought I had made up my mind. And now after the scrimmage, I've got more film to watch. So talk to me about what you're hearing about these three, where this thing stands. I feel like we're 10 days into camp, but they still may have this thing at a 3-man race.
Yeah, I think Coach coming into this, he wanted to name the starter, probably coming out of the scrimmage. But sometimes you just have to adjust. And, you may have to move off that 10-day window that you had for all three guys to get equal reps. You may have to push this thing all the way to the end of camp. And, my whole thing is, what's the rush? I know you want to get guys in there and try to build some chemistry with the offensive line and the receivers and start to hear one voice. But, when you're in a situation like this, you want to make sure that you get it right. And sometimes you want to make sure that we got to exalt every possibility, every situation that we can before we make this decision. And I think for Holden, the thing is, he has no pressure on him.
Right.
The pressure seems to fall on Peyton and Robbie, as far as those two guys having experience, already played in college football. Two guys that's been starters in college football now. And, Holden is kind of like, okay, I've been kind of sitting since high school. And I kind of want to get myself in a position where I can compete, but I'm competing with no pressure. I have nothing to lose in this situation right now because no one expected me to be here. No one expected me to be competing or even be announced in this decision as being the quarterback. So for him, that's his point. Now, when it comes to Robbie and Peyton, Robbie is the guy that was here during spring ball. So he should be ahead of Peyton when it comes to the development of the playbook, when it comes to understanding, what Coach Montgomery wants more out of the offense. He has 6 months advantage on him. I say 5 months advantage on him. So, at this point, if he wasn't ahead as far as the learning curve, then that would be an issue, so the fact that he is ahead of him in the learning curve, that shows that, Robbie's studying. He's trying to position himself to be the guy. Now you look at Peyton. Okay, Peyton was the guy that got here this summer, hadn't really had many live reps with this team, and only been here for a short amount of time. So he's really only had a week to try to get to know these guys in a live practice. So he's probably going to be behind a little bit even while he's trying to progress forward as fast as he can, there's still a lot of catching up to do as far as like finding rhythm with your teammates, finding chemistry with your guys, and also dissecting this playbook. You
Yeah.
can't just learn it that fast. So I think for him, it's kind of like, do you narrow certain things down for him so he can get comfortable, and then you start to add to it as he goes? And then with Robbie, how much do you throw at him? I think Robbie is the X factor in this whole deal because he's the most athletic of all the three.
Definitely.
And, I think he can still help this football team in some ways, whether he's a starter or not, he still can have a big impact on the team. I
Right.
think the pressure now falls really, you know, how much can Peyton get comfortable
Yeah.
and how much consistency? Everyone watches the scrimmage, right? And but we're not in those practices every day to see like who's being consistent.
Hmm.
That's how coaches actually make their decision.
Right.
Some guys can look great one day, off the next day, or put together 2 days, off the third day. Who consistently at the end of the day, when coach make his decision, they're gonna go through all the practices and all the scrimmages, and they're gonna say who consistently looks apart.
Yeah.
Like who puts the most days in a row together consistently. And I think
Hmm.
that's how they would make their decision.
And what stood out to me, Jay, when we had him on the show, Robbie's got a very kind of calm confidence about him. I think there's a learning curve, and you can definitely speak to this for quarterbacks, and a very fine line that you have to find of having that calm confidence and that ability to kind of like own the room a little bit without it coming across of like as like abrasive or condescending or arrogant. And I think that you see quarterbacks all the time, even in the league, that teeter with that difference. And I think for this team and the nature of where our culture is right now, you've got to have a guy that's got that it factor, and usually that's off the field, right? And it's a guy that's got that confidence that makes his teammates believe in it as well. And I don't know that Robbie possessed that last year, but when talking to him a couple weeks ago, seeing how he's kind of gone about his training, his off season, I feel like there's an intangible with Robbie that he has certainly honed in on, but Peyton already came in with it. The first thing people talk about with Peyton Thorne is his leadership ability. We don't know enough about Holden. So I just think that this coaching staff is looking at this going, all of them have something. Who's going to end up with the most? And the thing with our schedule, Jay, I mean, no offense to you, Mass, and you certainly don't want to take it lightly. You do have a little bit more cushion that fall camp, you would love to have the decision made, but you're going to get these guys live reps, and arguably that'll be the deciding factor.
Yeah, because you can look totally different in games than you do practice.
Totally.
Some guys are just gamers. They're just
Hmm.
not big practice guys. And like I said, it always comes down to chemistry. You talk about, you know, Robbie's situation from last year. Everything that he endured, and then some of he brought
Hmm.
on himself, and then some of he was out of his control. But I
Right.
do think, the new coaching staff came in and instilled confidence in him instantly.
Yeah.
Because a player can tell how they're being coached that gives them confidence that, okay, I can succeed in this system,
Hmm.
and I think he felt that right off the bat because what Coach Freeze has done with Malik Willis,
Exactly.
and
Look at his
everything. So,
resume.
right. So it was instant credibility there for him. When you think about I'm all about like your work ethic should show you who you are.
Hmm.
Like I don't care if a guy's so loud in the room, in the locker room and all that. That doesn't affect me. Like you're
Right.
just barking out words. But if your actions are showing me that, hey, this is a guy that you can follow, then that's when your teammates are like, okay, I see his work ethic, I see his attitude, I see how he gets along with everybody in the locker room, not just the offensive guys. Your quarterback has got to be a leader of the defense. He has
Yeah.
got to be able to go and talk to the defense, and communicate with those guys. A quarterback is the centerpiece of the entire team.
So
And
true.
as you go with your mindset, sometimes your team goes. And you have got to understand when there's a bad situation going on, your quarterback has got to step up and put some type of consistency when it comes
Yeah.
to calming things down, because you're the coach on the field, really. So I think in that aspect, Robbie has learned, like, okay, These are things I've learned. But also what makes you get better, you bring in competition. You
Mm-hmm.
know, when competition comes in and someone comes in to take your job, you instantly get up out your seat and you start being more attentive to things, and you
So
start
true.
trying to pay attention to everything. And then you start to look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, what is it that I need to improve in? Because they brought in someone to compete with me for this job.
Right.
So
Right.
that gets your antennas flow, and that makes you grow up a lot faster as well. Um, Holden has been there. You know, he's been sitting there. You know, he hasn't put himself out there. He doesn't say a lot to the media.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he kind of like goes about his business. He's kind of like the quiet assassin. You know, you hear about those guys that, you know, that play ball and people be like, wow, where did he come
Where'd
from?
that come from?
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? He's like one of those type of guys that just kind of goes about his business. And those are guys you have to be careful about, because
Right.
it's just like when you picking a fight, the one that always barks the loudest is probably the weakest, but the one that's the
Totally.
strongest is the silent one. So that's the one you always got to pay careful to. So I think going into the scrimmage, I think you said Robbie probably was the guy. I think based off being at the scrimmage and
Mm-hmm.
then Peyton Thorne taking the first reps with the ones to start the scrimmage off, I think it was probably more like hit Peyton. And
Okay.
then I think the other two guys showed a lot during the scrimmage that made coach be like, okay, you know what? Let me just open this thing up a little bit more and make sure that I'm exalting everything. I think Peyton
Yeah.
probably was the guy to start the scrimmage off. He's probably
Mm.
been more consistent, probably. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like I said, it's gonna come down to who's being the most consistent. And so it may go into game one.
I
You
mean,
know,
you
who
kind of
knows?
expect it to at this point.
Yeah, it may go into game one and a little bit into game two. You know, you're
Mm-hmm.
on the road, you're in a hostile environment. You know, how you control road games as a quarterback tells you a lot
Yeah.
about, can you lead this football team. So it's
So
a
true.
great problem to have. I don't want people to think like, oh, we haven't named a quarterback, that's a problem. No, this is a great problem because we haven't had this type of thing here the last 2 years, you know.
Right.
But now you have guys with experience, and then you have a young gun that no one knows a lot about, but everyone feels confident in. So this is a good situation because it takes more than one quarterback sometimes to get you through a season, as we've seen before with the
Yeah.
last two national championship teams.
I want to get your input a little bit specifically on the RPO. We talk about it a lot, and obviously that's what Hugh Freeze and Philip Montgomery have done. That's what
Yeah.
they've implemented in offensive schemes in the past, and they have been open about saying they're going to do what they do. They're changing terminology, which they also have talked about, but they're doing the same system. So you expect the RPO is going to be heavily involved in this offense, which is another element of this quarterback battle that is very hard for us to see. And
Right.
that is the decision making ability, because the RPO is so predicated on the quarterback's ability to read the situation, react quickly, and implement that run pass option. So, break it down in layman's terms for listeners who maybe are not super familiar. Obviously, the RPO has gained a lot of traction in the past probably 5 years. It's become way more popular. Break it down for us a little bit, specifically from a quarterback perspective, what you're looking for, what you're keyed in on, and ultimately kind of your steps and your process through the mental game.
Yeah, back when I played, there wasn't no such thing as RPOs. You know,
Mm-hmm.
everyone say, "What is the RPO?" RPO is a run pass option. And back in the day, you either check to a run or you checked
Yeah.
out of a run to a pass. Where now they try to speed the game up and say, how can we get more plays, but how can we go fast without slowing the game down sometimes by checking, where then defenses
Mm-hmm.
have a chance to readjust, you know, once they see the quarterback checking to another play. So what they came up with was the RPO game. I got a chance to get a taste of it my last 3 years in the NFL. And I really like it because it does make you go fast, and it helps the
Yeah.
quarterback make quick decisions, and you don't have to worry about trying to play chess with the defense all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about it is, if you're a linebacker, you're sometimes caught on an island, because if you have a really good running back and they're in shotgun or under the center,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know if it's going to be a run, or you don't know if you suck up into the hole that they throw a slant behind you. So you almost have to study so much more now to understand, like, okay, how I'm getting attacked. You know, defensive
Right.
ends, you can't get out of your rush lanes as much, because if you rush too hard upfield, they may hit you with a run that goes right by you. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, if you come inside, then the quarterback may keep it and get outside on the run.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many different layers to the RPO system, and it kind of like it's basically three plays in one. where the coach gives you a play and the quarterback is reading one key sometimes. That key may be, hey, my eyes on the linebacker. If he comes, I'm throwing the slant. If he sits, I'm handing it off. Or if the corner's way off, I may just raise up and throw the hitch outside to my receiver. So I got all these built-in options to keep the offense on schedule. And if you're a really good quarterback and you understand the schemes and the different defenses, what they're giving you, you can move the ball up and down the field. Now it tightens on you when you get to the red zone because now you got that back line back there. You don't have as much room to work with. So then your decisions come a lot quicker and they got to be a lot finesse. When it comes to being in an open field, if you are a running quarterback, that's why I said Robbie being a threat, his running ability causes problems for defenses. Now, with Peyton having some experience in the passing game and all these different things, that's why I say Auburn has a good situation because because they can still utilize these guys, whether they're starting or not, in so many different ways to put pressure on defenses to prepare. And if I'm Auburn right now, I don't name a quarterback for another week.
Right.
Really, I just don't on purpose because UMass is preparing. California is preparing. Like give them something else to think about. Make them have to go watch Michigan State film. Make them have to watch Robbie Asher film. The only guy they don't know is Holden Gerner. So they don't have any film on him. But I'm playing a chess game to the public as well. You're not going to know who my guy is until it's probably game week. So I'm going to make you do all this preparation, and then you're not even going to know if I'm going to play two guys in the first game or the second game. So I'm going to let everything be a mystery until we get to the game. So from the RPO standpoint, that's pretty much the hands and bottoms of it. Your offensive line is very included in this as well because on the RPO game, you can't allow them to be too far down the field. So as a quarterback, that decision has to be made quickly. So if you're going to pull it and throw a slant or throw a hitch or throw a quick out or throw a quick seam, you got to make that decision within a second. Because if your lineman get caught 3 yards down the field thinking you handed it off and it's a run play, now you can get a big play call back. So with the running backs that we have, and Jarquez and Brian Battie and Damari Alston and then Jeremiah Cobb and Sean Jackson, we have a group of guys. If you was at that scrimmage on Saturday, you better keep your eyes out for the game changer, Brian Battie. This kid is so quick. Like he gets to the hole so fast, it's almost as a shock to the linebackers and safety. So this is a season I want to see with this RPO system and how it works with Jarquez and Brian Battie and Damari and all those guys moving forward.
Yeah, I think I saw a quote saying that you can't stop something that you don't see about Brian Battie, just that he's just gone. But a lot of high praise for Damari Alston as well, who has been quoted saying he's really taken on a new leadership role for this team. Obviously, with Tank moving on and Jarquez dealing with some of the off-the-field things he's been dealing with, I have so much faith in that room. That running back room, obviously led by our guy Cadillac. Like, I just have all the faith in the world in that group. We've beefed up the offensive line. So I feel like this RPO game, and yes, like we said, the quick decision-making, the quick analysis and response by the quarterback affects all of this. So much is put on that guy, which is why the coaching staff ain't going to rush this. Breaking news, like they are going to take their time because it's all going to run through that guy. Every offense runs through that guy. But what they want to do specifically and the personnel that they have established, if I'm a defense, I am now having to prep for potentially 3 quarterbacks, like you said, and an RPO definitely adds a level to film study and preparation for a game because you have to find different keys because it's almost a gamble when you're defending the RPO. You kind of have to bet on one side or what you think they're about to go, but it opens you up to be so vulnerable in the other. If I'm Auburn and I've got this stable of running backs and an offensive line that is far more equipped to create those run games, protect the backs a little bit better, I'm going run, forcing this defense to put extra guys in the box because they know we've got to shut down this run game or else that's going to be how they attack us throughout the game. We've got so many guys rested on the sideline ready to come in and be in the backfield. I'm putting extra guys in the box and then boom, it opens up a Rivaldo Fairweather in the back of the end zone or a Jay Fair down the sideline who's also getting high praise. You don't have to have this electric pass attack. You just have to have it work a few times. That's how it kind of feels like you're going to force the defense to buy all in to stop that run game. And then you hit that big pass and you see what happens. That feels like the personnel that we have garnered. It just is going to be whoever is back there accurately assessing what they're getting and making it go. And I think that all three of them have the ability to do that. And it is going to come down to consistency of play and consistency of decision making in this system. So that's ultimately what I think they'll rely on.
And that's the key. Like you just said, decision making is number one. Are you getting us in the right plays? Are you putting us in the right position? Are you keeping our offense on schedule? Number two is, are you getting us out of bad plays versus blitz? Do you see the corner blitz from the boundary? Do you see the nickel blitz from the field? Things like that. You're not running us into the blitz. Are you getting us to the right play? So all those things come in play when you're talking about RPO. So everyone gets hung up on the scrimmage. I get it, but scrimmage is one day to me, because some days, some guys can have an off day. Some guys can be really good all the way up to that. And all of a sudden, boom, I had a pretty good bad scrimmage. And the reason I say that is because Jay Fair has been getting a lot of high praise this entire time. And then in the scrimmage Saturday, he had a pretty much of a rough day catching the ball. He was creating separation, but he had a rough day catching the ball. I don't want people to all of a sudden think like, oh, Jay Ferris can be a guy because of the scrimmage. You know what I'm saying? Because he is a guy. He was where he's supposed to be. He just had some drops, but I'd rather for him to have those drops and those mistakes now so that they can be corrected and he can see himself making plays. And I like Shane Brooks a lot. I don't know if you had a chance to see him. The transfer from Jackson State, this kid is long. He's athletic. He causes problems on the outside. So, keep an eye out for him as well as Rivaldo Fairweather.
He was, I think it was Philip Montgomery said he was, quote, unguardable in the scrimmage. I mean, he's a big dude, so like having him in the passing game is essential. But yeah, I think that it just feels like it's setting up better than people expect. Maybe I'm delusional or just optimistic as we are. They're one and the same when you're an Auburn fan. Optimism, delusion, whatever. But no, I like what I'm seeing as far as personnel, adaptability, options. I also think that such a key piece of the quarterback decision is also going to be which guys have developed that chemistry with this offensive line, because you are going to need a guy who is willing to stand there in the pocket, step up into the pocket, really trust that his blind side is protected, to be looking for all of those options that we're talking about and be able to make the appropriate decision. You can't be doing that if you also are taking, love you, Bo Nix, but taking several yards back out of the pocket and putting us in negative yard situations because you don't trust your offensive line.
And like they want to see you sometimes go in there and be tough. See someone coming down the A gap, hit you right between the chest and the neck, and you still deliver a touchdown pass. They want to see that. That gets your teammates excited. That our quarterback is standing in there and taking a hit and still delivering the ball.
Do you have a memory of a hit in college? I mean, I know you have one in the NFL. We don't need to talk about it. But do you have a memory of one in college where you're like, I got trucked, but like I got up, I kept going.
Everybody should go back and watch the 4th and 10 play against LSU, the Courtney Taylor. Where I got hit from the front and from the behind. They brought a corner blitz. It was a cover 0 blitz, so they brought everybody, and that's when Coach Saban was at LSU, and Muschamp was his defensive coordinator. So we knew they was going to bring the funk. And they brought everybody. And, I got sandwiched. All I can remember just releasing the ball and putting it where Courtney could have enough time to come out of it and find it, because I knew I wouldn't have time to see him come out of his break. And and that just comes from timing, though. That was timing and chemistry, things that you have to work on after practice. If you don't have time to fit it in, you stay after and work on. So it wasn't something that just happened, but, it was kind of me knowing Courtney's body language. Kind of knowing when he's going to be able to come out of it, and him knowing kind of like, where I can put it at. So it's chemistry. Chemistry is a huge, huge deal. And that may not happen until week 3. We have to be patient.
Right. That's a really good example, because you got trucked. They brought the funk.
Yeah, they brought the funk. I hope Auburn brings the funk this year on defense.
We're going to bring the funk. Okay, well, now I got to name the episode that. Who's a guy that the first time you went up against him in the league, you were like, holy crap, like, I'm blocking Ray Lewis right now. Like who's a guy that you were like, frick, this guy is just a pain in my ass. Like you see him on the schedule and you're like, dang it, that means I got to see so and so. Who was
Yeah,
that for
I would
you?
say for me, we played Pittsburgh, Troy Polamalu,
Oh yeah,
this guy could just line up at the line of scrimmage and all of a sudden at the snap of the ball, he's 25 yards deep. It's just like, are you blitzing or are you not blitzing? And it was so unorthodox because you couldn't just look at their defense and just say
yeah,
where he's going to do because they kind of let him have his own set of rules. And
totally.
so he made it complicated. But I will say this, my first year I got ready to start, we did a live scrimmage versus Baltimore and
Okay.
seeing Ray Lewis and and Edrin James and not Edrin James, Ed Reed and
Oh
Ray
yeah.
Lewis, and then Deion Sanders was there. And
Okay.
Deion was like in his 13th, 12, 14th year, something like that. And I'm standing on the side, I'm getting ready to go in when the offense get the ball back, and I'm just like, I'm about to go up against three known future Hall of Famers,
Right.
like immediately. You know what I'm saying? And you're thinking in your head, like, this is
Ooh,
freaking Deion Sanders,
right.
rated as the best corner of all time.
Hmm.
And I tell you, even at that stage of his career, he could still move like a cheetah. Like he was still so quick, like
Yeah.
coming off the slide on blitzes, knowing how to line up on certain receivers and defend, even at that age.
Yeah.
Like he was still dynamic. I was just thinking to myself, like, dang, could you imagine playing against him in his first couple of years when he was young and super athletic and super quick and could move like
Yeah.
that? Like, it's
Healthy.
just some guys you don't appreciate it until you actually see it in person
That's
you
fair.
know. And I just think a lot of people, and you don't realize how hard the game is until you go against these guys and you see it in person. And like
Right.
how it really, when it comes to football, it takes a team
Yeah.
around you to really be successful in the National Football League because it
No
is that
kidding.
competitive.
It's another level. Man, what a squad, And you were like, "Okay, welcome to the league. This is what everyone
Yeah.
was talking about."
Yeah. Welcome
That
to the
is pretty
league.
cool.
We'll talk a little
You
defense,
know,
because there are some new guys on that defensive side of the ball. Elijah McAllister had a big scrimmage.
he did,
He's long, athletic, knocked down a lot of passes.
as expected. It's interesting. Hugh Freeze has actually spoken and kind of challenged the defense more than the offense so far in fall camp. And I kind of wonder if it's like reverse psychology a little bit. Like he's giving praise to the offense for taking care of the ball, but then saying, but that means our defense needs to go get it a little bit more, like it definitely
Defense
seems
wins
like he's
championships,
challenging them. Hmm.
Defense wins championships, and if he's going to win this year in this conference, you got to be able to stop the offensive attacks that we're going to face, and that's why you go out and get the Justin Rogers. That's why you go out and get
Yeah.
Jalen McLeod. That's why you go out and get Larry Nitson and some of these newcomers, Elijah McAllister. You beefed up front in experience in the portal
Right.
because you know the type of skill talent that you're going to be facing with these offenses. Think about it. If you look at our schedule, which offense doesn't scare you? Maybe Vanderbilt in the SEC. Yeah, so we'll
There's
see that.
no,
We'll
you're
see.
right. I mean, this defense is going to have their work cut out for them as they do every year, and I think we've had a lot of excitement around the names that we have gained, transfer portal, returners, coaches. Like there's been a lot of excitement on the defensive side, but I mean, the proof is going to be in the pudding, and obviously, it's got to be so confusing as a coach, kind of like during the spring game. Hugh Freeze kind of said this, but certainly in fall camp too. Like if you're happy with one side, it means you're pissed at the other, like you lose in some regard, you want both sides to be showing out, in which case 0-0, but that means your offense didn't do anything. It's just confusing. So definitely a lot of expectations for both sides, and Hugh is definitely holding them to the fire a little bit. So also, a quick follow up on the conference realignment chaos that we got into last week. They are going to continue to be meeting. Obviously, the College Football Playoff Committee gets involved at this point because the current structure around the playoff has to be reevaluated as conference shifts, because now you've got conferences with more members than others. You've got some that are potentially going to completely go away. And the group of five is sitting here going to get an automatic bid, even though these Power Five conferences are completely overloaded. So the conference or the CFP's governance structure, revenue distribution model, and most notably the playoff format are likely all up for re-examination after last week's realignment shift. Several college leaders say they're going to have to reevaluate this. But again, kind of like I was saying last week, we're implementing all these things without having a clue what the residual impact is going to be. And then we're going to have all these meetings, and these people are going to be expected to figure it out in a year's time.
Yeah, the Pac-12 is pretty much blowing up.
Done.
You know, it's they're down to 4 teams, and it's just a matter of time how they work it out.
Yeah.
I just feel bad from the standpoint that Stanford, and I believe it is Cal, talking about joining the ACC. That's a lot for parents and even students when you're talking about traveling all the way across the U.S. To play games and everything. And yes, a football game is one game, but you're talking about basketball and then baseball and, you know, softball, swimming, all those different other sports that has to endure those flyer miles. And then parents, those are not cheap tickets when you fly from East Coast to West Coast and West Coast to East. Your plane ticket doubles, you know, so
right.
Geographically, it needs to make sense. And I just think like they're going everywhere but making sense.
If we are going to have to join the Pacific 12 and the Atlantic Coast Conference, y'all, I mean, come on. That is the two sides of the country, literally.
Yeah, and that's just too hard. That's hard on coaches and players. And,
yeah,
you know, they got to find something different because it is going to get, like you said, to maybe a big four region conferences where you have 4 major conferences and then you have all the group of 5s. That sounds like what they're trying to get to, and they're trying to pull 2 teams from each major conference, and then you have so that'll put us 8 teams, and you grab 4 from the group of 5, which puts you in a 12-team playoff. So I think it's all predicated on how do they make it easier to decide who gets in the playoffs, and they have to condense all these conferences in order to do so.
Yes. So many decisions loom because it feels like typically in life you make the small decisions and they lead up to the big one. And in all of this madness, it's been like, we're going to make this big decision. We're going to let players get paid to play. And then we're going to have to figure out all the little details that we didn't do at first, like revenue distribution amongst all these money holders in all these different conferences and universities. Like, it's the same thing. So I assume more decisions will come. I feel like the playoff committee is likely going to have to adjust and adapt, but from what we've seen so far, they don't do any of that very quickly. So I wouldn't be surprised if 24, 25 looks the same and we start to slowly roll out some of these changes as time goes on. But we will definitely get you ready for season and in all its entirety, SEC and Auburn alike. So make sure you hang with us the next couple of weeks, and then we'll be into our game previews and game kickoffs. And obviously, Jason will have you covered on Auburn and his radio coverage, and I'll have you covered in the SEC as I'll have different conference games throughout the week. So we will just be well-versed on SEC football this season, as we love to be. So make sure you stick with us. You can subscribe if you have not already, and we will give you a notification every time we release a new episode. Make sure you follow us on social. We are also on YouTube. What up, YouTube? And we'll bring you all the action as season gets going. So thanks for listening, everybody. We will talk next week. As always, War Damn Eagle.
War Eagle.
Oh, that was a good one.